NASA locates missing Indian spacecraft. Launched in October 2008 on a 2-year mission, India lost track of its first ever lunar probe, the Chandrayaan-1, after 312 days. Its whereabouts remained unknown until last July, when NASA scientists located it. To search for the missing probe, NASA sent microwave beams from a 230-foot antenna at their Goldstone Observatory in California. These microwave beams were trained on the Moon and the spacecraft's predicted orbit over the lunar North Pole. The Chandrayaan-1 passed through the beam and bounced back radio echoes that were received by the Green Bank Radio Telescope in West Virginia. The space agency reckons this same tracking method may have potential use in future robot and human missions to the Moon. Say no to safe spaces on YouTube. Support TomoNews at patreon.com/TomoNews. NASA aren't the only ones with designs on the Moon. SPACEX to fly 2 tourists around the Moon next year. This week, SPACEX announced bold plans to next year fly 2 paying passengers around the Moon, using technology that's still in development. In 2018, SPACEX hopes to fly 2 private citizens deeper into space than any human has journeyed previously. The 2 travelers will trek some 400,000 miles around and beyond the Moon during the 7-day mission, before looping back to Earth. Before training for the mission, SPACEX says each of the unnamed passengers will undergo a series of tests for their health and fitness. The passengers are set to travel aboard a SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft, shot into orbit by a multi-stage Falcon Heavy rocket. The still-in-design rocket's first stage consists of 3 reusable rockets that produce 500,000 pounds of thrust. After separating, the central rocket propels the payload into orbit, where it continues on its voyage. SpaceX founder Elon Musk says the travelers will be trained for emergencies. However, the Crew Dragon spacecraft, which is also still being developed, will be mainly piloted autonomously. The crew can monitor real-time ship diagnostics, change the temperature, and take in views through one of the vessel's 4 windows. The spacecraft will conduct a flyby of the surface of the Moon before traveling further out into space, where no human has gone before. It will then use the Moon's gravity to slingshot back toward Earth. SpaceX hopes to launch the mission in late 2018, following a series of tests on the rocket and spacecraft. The identity of those traveling remains unknown, but one thing's for sure, they're very brave individuals indeed, and possibly also Scrooge McDuck rich. China sets out deep space exploration plans. China on Tuesday published a white paper outlining the country's activities in space for the next half-decade. The Chinese government plans to launch and land probes on Mars and the Moon by 2020. The lunar mission is set for 2018, and if successful, would see the first ever probe being landed on the far side of the Moon. China also plans on robotically exploring the Moon's poles. China's Mars mission is slated for 2020. China plans to send a lander, rover, and orbiter to Mars all in one go. There, China aims to collect samples from the planet and transport them to Earth by 2030. China also aims to explore an asteroid and the Jupiter system, with the latter mission expected to take place in the next 10 to 15 years. If any of these are successful, they have the potential to set the People's Republic of China on the path to becoming a space power that could rival Russia or even the US. Private German moon mission to inspect Apollo 17 rover. A team of scientists in Germany has developed a lunar rover that will soon fly to the Moon and visit the legendary Apollo 17 lunar rover vehicle. The rover, dubbed Audi Lunar Quattro, is made of aluminum and titanium and was created almost entirely with 3D printing technology. It is equipped with Audi's 4-wheel drive technology, solar panels, rechargeable lithium-ion batteries, and science-grade high-definition cameras. 2 rovers will be carried by the Alina spacecraft, which stands for the Autonomous Landing and Navigation Module. Alina will also carry several other payloads, including a lunar plant growth experiment. A SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will likely be used to transport the rovers into space. Alina will touch down about 5 kilometers from the Apollo 17 in the Taurus Littoral Valley. After landing, the two rovers will be deployed and travel toward the Apollo 17 lunar rover. However, they are not allowed any closer than 200 meters from the Apollo rover, per NASA's request. The rovers will send live HD pictures of the Apollo rover back to Earth. The scientists are one of the 16 teams competing for the $30 million Google Lunar X prize. However, they said the ultimate goal wasn't really to win the money, but to reach the Apollo 17 rover. Say no to safe spaces on YouTube. Support TomoNews at patreon.com/TomoNews. NASA might start sending people back into space sooner than expected. NASA seems to be taking a cue from Trump, taking a bolder, riskier approach after the president made it apparent he wanted the U.S. to retain its dominance in space. Since the end of the space shuttle program, NASA has relied on Russia to send its astronauts into space. The agency's acting administrator announced Wednesday that it's thinking of sending astronauts on a space mission earlier than planned, possibly within Trump's first term in office. NASA's Space Launch System rocket was originally slated to go on its first exploration mission in 2018 with an unmanned space capsule. This timeline calls for the SLS to be launched from the Kennedy Space Center on September 30th, carrying the Orion space capsule into space in a mission known as EM-1. The capsule would orbit the moon for about 3 weeks before returning to Earth, splashing down into the ocean with the help of parachutes. A second crewed mission was scheduled for 2021, but with new plans considering the addition of a crew to EM-1, it seems astronauts could be going on the Orion as early as 2019. For that, NASA needs an SLS rocket with a more powerful second stage, known as the Exploration Upper Stage, or EUS. But though the design for EUS has been approved, it has yet to be built. Another hurdle the agency needs to overcome is human rating the Orion space capsule, which at the moment is still missing key life support systems. NASA may be enthusiastic about its latest move, but it's unclear how NASA will meet program schedules, especially given its limited budget.